Before the video begins, I'd like to let you guys know that this video contains gore-related things. So, if you have a weak stomach, this may not be the video for you. For this video, you all sent me a ton of different kinds of stories, so I tried to mix it up and include a brutal story, some creepy stories, and a weird and unexplained story that maybe some of you can relate to. Joining me for this video, I have a good friend of mine, Lazy Masquerade, who will be narrating a couple of the stories. We also did a video on his channel, so be sure to check that out once you've finished this one. Now, on to the stories. When I was younger, I used to live in the province of Newfoundland in Canada, in a town called St. John's. It isn't a huge city, and people are very welcoming. We're actually known for our hospitality and as being the friendliest people in Canada. I think that's what makes this such a surreal story to retell. My neighborhood mostly consisted of families, so it was pretty quiet most days. There was, however, a group of boys, not malicious, just young, and so they would often get into trouble. Usually for silly childish things like playing ding-dong ditch, but occasionally they did cause bigger problems. Not long before this particular day, one thing these boys had done was put duct tape on one of my cats. They had said that they were mimicking a video they had seen online. We needed to cut the tape out of his fur and gave him a lion cut because of it. Needless to say, I was not a fan of those kids. One afternoon in the early summer, I had been outside on my front deck reading when I see two of these boys running up the hill. I lived on the corner, so when they turned onto their street, I could clearly hear them say that there was something dead in the field. They seemed hysterical, so I didn't think it was a prank, and all I could think of was my cats. I was instantly terrified. I used to take in all the stray cats since it snows so much in Newfoundland. I was certain that they had done it, that they had gone too far and murdered one of my cats. I ran towards the soccer field as fast as I possibly could, filled with the dread that one of my animals was dead. When I ran down the gravel path alongside of the field, I could see a couple of the boys still there and obviously upset. They asked if they were going to get in trouble. They said the other boys were going to call the cops. At that moment, I was so sure that they had killed something that I was sick with fear and anger. I asked them where it was, and they told me it was beyond the fence and not in the field itself. Beside the field, there was an underdeveloped area. It ran along the half of the block that wasn't occupied by the soccer field. It was filled with many trees and dense underbrush. All the kids used to play there, and so did I. So I crawled under the gap in the fence and went looking around. I walked through the lot, following along the back of the houses. There was trash strewn about that people had thrown over their fences. However, it didn't take me long to find what I was looking for. The smell hit me long before I actually found anything. It was like being hit in the face with a compost bin. It was rotten and stale, and I'll never forget it for as long as I live. Among some of the other debris, there was a suitcase. It was open and there was something there, something not right inside. There's no real way to describe what I saw. It looked like meat, but it obviously wasn't. It isn't like what you expect from watching TV. It wasn't covered in blood. I think my instincts realized what it was before my mind did. It still had skin. Obviously human skin. I don't really know what happened next. I just ran out of there as fast as I could move. It just didn't seem real. It was wrong. So many levels of wrong. That's not the type of thing that happens in real life. You don't just find things like that outside of TV shows. People don't just find parts of another human being. The boys screaming must have gotten the attention of more than just myself, as there were many adults headed into the field by this point, and the police were not far behind. Many people gawked from the entrance for quite some time. Eventually, I headed back to my house and watched from the patio as the circus unfolded. Some of my neighbors spoke to the police as well as the press. I personally said nothing at all. I couldn't process what I had just seen. It was just this out-of-body experience that was far too surreal to be true. What I saw that day was a piece of a person, a real, dismembered woman who lived at the bottom of my street. It wasn't long before the police identified the victim, and once they did, they arrested her boyfriend. Rumors flew through the neighborhood. They said that she was pregnant and that's why he did it. Some said they never found all the pieces of her body. More disturbing, and something I have no idea if it's true, but it was said, was that her head was still in his freezer. What I do know is that it took a long time for the people in the neighborhood to recover from that. What had once been this quiet little community was shaken by something so violent, quite literally happening in our own backyard.
When I was 10, my dad and I took a trip to see my grandparents down in North Carolina. I'm from Virginia, so it was a quick 2-day trip. I'd never really been very close to my grandma or grandpa, seeing as they lived in another state. When we got there, my grandpa made an extra effort with me for some reason. He went out and bought me my favorite ice cream, and stayed up late eating it with me while we watched movies and whatnot. It was nice. Weird, but nice. We left and thought nothing of it. That was in the last week of October. December 18th comes around. I'm in my 5th grade class when I get an absolutely horrible stomach pain. I'm crying as my mum's picking me up. It just hurts that bad. That was around 2 in the afternoon. We get home, and I take a nap around 3. I wake up at around 5 PM with some really weird chest pain. It felt like my heart was beating funny. I told my mum, and she said she'd monitor it, but that it should be fine. It eventually went away around dinner time. We go about our night, have dinner and do homework, and my little sister and I get sent to bed. As I'm falling asleep, I hear our house phone ring, which I thought was strange considering it's around 9 PM and on a school night. That's when I hear my dad scream. He's screaming and crying, running up the stairs, and bursts into our room, and my mum jumps up to ask him what happened. They walk out of the room and leave my sister and I wide awake in our beds. After my dad finally calms down, my mum and him bring me downstairs, explaining that my grandpa had died suddenly that evening. He was in great shape for his age and never had any problems with his health. I sit there confused as they continue on telling me what happened. My mum tells me the following. He and Grandma were going to go out for dinner tonight, but Grandpa had a really bad stomachache, so he went to lay down. At around 3 PM, his heart exploded in his sleep, honey. Grandma went to try and wake him up around 7, but he was already gone. That's when it hit me. He had a stomachache and went to sleep at the same time I did. I woke up with my heart feeling funny, right around the time he died. My mum just kind of passed it off as a weird coincidence, but weird things like that happen to me sometimes. When his wife died, I dreamt that she reunited with him in a dream, even before my parents told me. And when my grandma died on my mum's side of the family, I was at school and just burst out crying for absolutely no reason. And when I got home from school, my mum told me she had passed. I haven't lost anyone in a long time, but I swear that stuff with my grandpa seriously made me rethink a lot of stuff I thought I knew as a kid. Weird shit, man.
I'm a female currently living in New England but spent much of my childhood in Arizona. I lived in a semi-decent neighborhood in Phoenix that used to be a citrus orchard. The neighborhood itself was okay, but bordered poorer areas that were known for being a bit sketchy. I loved to explore on my Razor scooter, run around with the other kids, go play on the swings, and climb grapefruit trees. I never once felt unsafe, and my parents were comfortable with letting me roam around as long as I came home before 6 p.m. I wasn't a timid child and even went into people's yards when something interesting caught my eye. When I ran into the occasional adult outside, probably questioning what a chubby 10-year-old was doing in their yard, I would speak to them just as I would another kid. This led to a few cringeworthy moments, such as me proudly announcing I was harvesting minerals out of a random guy's gravel in his front yard, completely oblivious to the fact that it was his private property. Anyway, one day I was biking around in the afternoon looking for something to do when I spotted a cat in someone's yard. I absolutely adored cats and still do to this day, so of course I brake immediately and just leave my bike in the road to go pet the cat. The cat was friendly and let me pet her, but after a minute walked over to the entrance to the side yard of the house. The gate was open and I followed her a few feet into the side yard, thinking the owner of the house wasn't home as there was no car in the driveway. The cat walked into a small shed with the door propped open. I peered inside and, to my delight, there were several newborn kittens. I was so ecstatic I could barely contain my excitement at this newfound adorable discovery. Maybe the homeowner would even let me have one. I pet them gently and cooed to the kittens as they crawled around the dusty shed. Eventually, the sun began to set and I was forced to leave my newfound babies behind, but I promised myself I would return the next day. For the next week, I would bike or scooter to the house with the kittens and check on them, bringing a small paper bowl with water for them and the mother cat. One day, I did my usual after-school routine of heading down to the kitten shed. A man in his mid-30s was outside in the backyard sitting in a cheap plastic lawn chair. Surprised, I darted back out of the side yard and back to my scooter in the street. Up until this point, I had never seen the residents of the house, and the thought of anyone living there had honestly slipped my mind. The man followed me out of his yard, giving me a warm smile, not something I expected. "Hi there. You can pet the kittens. I see you here almost every day. You really care about them," he said happily. The man, who I would come to know as Leo, was really kind and never once gave me any bad vibes. He even gave me Capri Suns when I would come over to play with the kittens. Over the next few weeks, I began to think of him as a friend, and it felt cool to be hanging out with a grown-up. I guess the whole stranger danger thing slipped my mind when faced with a man who would let me pet his cats, stupid as that sounds. Leo would talk to me as I pet the now energetic and playful kittens. He would tell me about himself, how he took care of his mom and was searching for a job. It didn't occur to me how strange and inappropriate it was for a man in his mid-30s to be talking to a 10-year-old girl whose family he didn't even know. This odd relationship continued until I brought it up to my mother. She surprisingly seemed pleased that I had found something that made me so happy, but told me she wanted to meet Leo before I went over there again. She and I walked over there one evening and Leo welcomed us, friendly as always. It was great to have someone both me and my mom could be friends with since, of course, she wasn't friends with any 10-year-olds. I hoped with all of my heart that she would let me take a kitten home one day. I mentioned this to her a few times and she seemed enthusiastic about the idea. One day, after getting picked up from school, my mom said she needed to talk to me. Thinking I was in trouble, I was a bit nervous. She explained to me that she didn't want me to ever visit Leo again and that it was completely non-negotiable. "But what about the kittens?" I pleaded. She wouldn't budge. I was sad and angry that I wasn't allowed to visit my friend and see the cats anymore. Thinking about it in retrospect, I am immensely grateful for her ultimatum. Once or twice after this, I rode by Leo's house and didn't see the kittens or even the mother cat outside, and so I became disinterested and eventually forgot about it all. Around a year ago, I was talking with my parents about our old neighborhood and asked my mom if she remembered the house with the kittens. My mom gets a serious look on her face and tells me she could never forget it because of what she witnessed one afternoon. On her day off from work, my mother had gone over to Leo's house to ask if my family could adopt a kitten in the near future. Leo gladly let her in and they started chatting. As they chatted, she noticed something out of the corner of her eye in the hallway on the floor. She casually glanced over during a break in the conversation, and to her disbelief, it was none other than a dead kitten. The thing is, this poor creature wasn't just dead, it had been squashed. Like roadkill, in the middle of this guy's house. My mother, obviously appalled, asked Leo if he knew of this. "Oh, yeah, I hate it when they try to come inside." He then explained to her that the kitten had been let inside by its mother and that sometimes they snuck in. Every time that this happened, he put on his steel-toed boots and, quote, got rid of them. Looking around, my mother slowly noticed more peculiarities. She got up and left immediately, and that very day forbid me from ever going back to Leo's house. This explained why I never saw the kittens again. I assume now that the mother cat had probably been killed as well, or left when her babies were slaughtered. My mother later called the police, who said there was very little that they could do since the cats were technically feral. I'm not sure what would have happened if I had continued to visit Leo, but needless to say, I hope he's never around another innocent animal ever again and that one day he gets what he deserves. Kids, always listen to your parents in these situations. And seriously, never go hanging around a stranger's house or try to be friends with an adult. No matter how nice they seem, you can never truly know what someone is really like behind closed doors.
This story goes back to 2004, back when I was 6 years old. We had recently moved to a town called Puyallup in Washington state. I moved a lot as a child, and it was always hard to make new friends, so moving was always a pain. Although, this time I was excited. The town I was moving to was home to the Puyallup Fair. I had previously been to that fair, but it was always a rare occurrence, as it was very far from where I lived before. Anyways, enough about the backstory. My family and I were at the fair and were partaking in the usual fair activities. Deep-fried food, people watching, and riding the rickety roller coasters. I was standing in line for a roller coaster, occasionally looking at my parents standing by. I vaguely remember a man standing closer to the ride than most parents, holding a camera. Me, being as young as I was, I just kind of figured it was some guy capturing pictures of his children. I didn't really notice anything was wrong, until some guy started yelling at the man with the camera. I just remember the guy grabbing the camera from the man and looking through a few of the photos before getting louder and visibly more angry. I didn't understand what was wrong. But before I knew it, the guy pocketed the man's camera and threw a fist his way. The man tried to fight back, but the guy just threw him on the ground and started to slam the man's head into the pavement, making a bloody mess. The ride attendant kept the line moving and had another ride attendant keep the kids exiting the ride in a safe area away from the brawl. I remember looking down from the ride, seeing security run up in their bright yellow vests, and a few police officers taking the man away. Not too long ago, I asked my mother about that event. It turns out that that man was taking pictures of children. Not his own, just random kids at the fair. Luckily, that guy caught on to what he was doing and quickly shut it down. My mother ended up talking to that guy before he confronted the man. She said that they were all kind of watching him creep around and take pictures of the kids. I don't think it was until the man paused his photo taking to scroll through his collection that the guy saw many pictures of children, even some naked children. I'm pretty sure that was that guy's snapping point. I know that I don't have too much strong information, or that good a memory of this, but really, it's just the thought of it that gives me the creeps. I know we all hear about stories of pedophiles, see it on the news, and are constantly warned about it. But it's one totally different thing to see it firsthand. Just thinking I could have been one of the kids in his collection. We're all just lucky someone caught on. You can really never be too observant.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed the video. I definitely got a lot of odd submissions for this one. I wasn't really able to do the paranormal type of childhood stories that were sent in to me, but I'm thinking of possibly doing a video like that in the future. I'm pretty sure that my next video is going to be a cyberstalker video or something relating to that sort of stuff. So if you have a story like that, or really any story at all, please be sure to send it in to corpsehusbandstories@gmail.com, with the subject of the email being what kind of story it is. Also, be sure to head over to Lazy Masquerade's channel and check out the video that we did there. Links will be in the description, and there should also be an annotation on screen right now. One last thing that I'd like to mention very quickly. I'm in the process of trying to move out right now. Those of you who follow me closely know that my living situation that I'm in currently makes it extremely difficult to make videos. This, coupled with the fact that all my health problems and even new ones have recently flared up again, is making my uploads a lot slower, and I do apologize for that. I'm hoping that moving out makes things a lot easier in terms of making videos and hopefully also eases some of my health problems, but it's also a big risk for me. So, if there was any time to share my videos or leave some of my playlists on, now would be the time. Well, that's about it, and once again, I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you so much for all your support. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and other social media for updates and just shenanigans in general, to be honest. We have a lot of fun there. Stay safe and have an awesome day.